recording. So now it's actually recording.
Yeah. Just
and
popped up, so it said it was.
after the call, it creates just like an audio and a video.
Mhm.
So a folder pops up with the
Awesome.
audio and video. So it's both, it's all there, which is great.
Yeah.
Easy cheesy. But now we are recording. So I can set a clock for 45 minutes to try to have a hard stop.
Yeah, we'll shoot for around 2:00, and that'd be good.
But if it's rolling, we can
We'll keep going. Yeah. Kelsey's here. The big kids are out of the house, so it's a little quiet.
Yeah.
The baby's napping, so I'm ready, man.
What'd you guys do this weekend?
Well, yesterday we were down in Sherburne, so we made the big trip to Sherburne, which was it was good. Yeah, it was actually a really fun day. We got back pretty late. We got back about 9:00, but it was a good day. It was jam packed, but we had a lot of fun, and yeah, it was good. So, how about you?
This weekend has been a relaxing weekend. Teddy called me last night around like 10:30 to have me watch part of the Duke and UNC game, college basketball.
So you're on the phone with each other?
Yeah. It was we were texting. Yeah, we were texting. But I've also watched several sports docs recently, specifically basketball. I'm kind of getting into understanding basketball.
Nice.
But this week was a pretty relaxed week. I mean, it's a nice day outside.
Yeah,
it's sunny.
It looks sunny and pretty. Yeah.
Couple blocks to the beach. All right, so I have some questions for you, Joe.
All right.
So, just
so you know, I'm going to turn a few of these around on you as well. So be prepared for that.
I would love for you to. My first impression of you when I met you my senior year of high school when I was coming in, checking out SUNY Geneseo to possibly run there and attend college there. And my initial impression was you were just this super gregarious, incredible extrovert. You knew everybody around campus. Everybody. People were coming up to you while we were sitting down at lunch. You just seemed to know everybody. Is that something that you had to learn, that skill, or is that just natural?
I think there's part of it that's factor installed, as a mentor of yours and mine used to say. But I think you build that up over time, right? I think it's like most things, you've got to practice. And I think some of that energy and enthusiasm is just, I've always felt kind of a vigor for life, So I think that was probably what was coming out. I may have, made me come across as, gregarious and, excited because I'm an enthusiastic guy, And, but from the social side, I think that comes with time and building your own self-confidence and self-belief and self-worth and, all those things, you just get a little bit more confident in your surroundings, maybe of who you are and what you bring to the table. And I think that all kind of plays in, right? So you combine that with some enthusiasm and excitement and energy, and that it can come across that way. So I appreciate you sharing that.
It was huge. And all right, so when you were 12, out of curiosity, what did you think you were going to end up doing as a career? I never asked you this question ever in our friendship, and I'm very curious about it.
So the timing, I don't know the exact timing, right? At 12 is a very specific question, but I love that it was specific. I'm just pulling up my notes here.
Yeah, please.
A few of the things I thought about were, I always liked kind of taking things apart and putting things back together when I was a kid. So whatever that was, it was little gadgets. Maybe just because we didn't have, we didn't have a lot of things, So it's like I found joy in, doing some of that stuff. So kind of working with my hands on that stuff. But
cool.
So that was something I always enjoyed doing. I always loved acting, and we'll talk a little bit more about that with some of your other questions too. But I always enjoyed acting, so that was something that interested me. Playing basketball for the North Carolina Tar Heels, oddly enough. I was
Really?
I always admired them. Coach Dean Smith coached through 1997,
Oh,
and growing up, I always loved UNC because of Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan went to UNC, so I always loved UNC.
cool.
So that was kind of a dream of mine. I don't know what the time was. That might have been more 14, 15 because I played basketball through ninth grade.
Yeah.
But that was one. And then I also started running around that time as well. So I'm
Cool.
sure there was some sports like I want to be a sports star, right? like some kids have that dream. For me, it was basketball, and then I got into running too. But yeah, those are a couple of things that came to mind when I was thinking about that question.
That's cool.
Hmm.
I had no idea. That is well, it's kind of interesting that then that eventually faded into an interest into being a teacher, right? An English teacher. And then
Yeah.
from there fading into being a business person. So so
Mhm.
that's an interesting transition in my view. Um,
Yeah.
I thought as a kid I was going to grow up to be some sort of math professor.
Well,
Okay,
that
I'm gonna
that
wear
fits with the first failed nickname that I ever had for you, which we won't say on this on this recording.
we can have another interview of purely nicknames and comments on nicknames. No, Archimedes. I'm proud of it
Yeah,
now in retrospect.
yeah. You know what? One of the things that one of my first impressions of you
Yeah.
was I always found you to be a very thoughtful guy, and I've always admired that as you've gotten older as well. You've kept that kind of approach to life of you're very thoughtful about how you approach things,
Thanks.
and I think you've balanced that well. It's a question I'm going to ask of you later: is finding that balance of being thoughtful and analytic, balancing that with taking action and having
Thank
daily
you.
courage, so that's something that I'll ask, for you to answer on a little bit later. But
Very nice of you.
that was one of my first impressions of you, is just how thoughtful you are.
That's cool.
I can tell that you're a thinker,
Thanks.
and I've always admired thinkers. So
Thank you. That's very
yeah.
nice of you to say that.
Yeah.
That I think that's why we initially became friends, right? Like, I
Hmm.
mean, we were both going above and beyond, thinking in terms of a bigger life than just
Hmm.
getting a job after college.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with
No.
going through the motions and being a
Yeah.
good student and getting a great job and starting a family. But I think the two of you and I both connected because we thought, okay, you know what? I want something that's a little bit bigger than the traditional path, whatever that ends up being.
Yeah.
I would
I
say,
think it. I think it was just that kind of pushing yourself right out of your comfort zone,
yeah,
and that's not easy to do.
yeah,
I think uh, that was important to both of us when we were
yeah.
17, 18, 19,
Yeah.
in our formative years, and that kind of habit has continued over time,
I would
and we
agree.
found it to be really useful.
I would agree.
So,
I would
mhm.
agree. I have more questions for you. Okay, so this is one that I did not send you,
Mhm.
but what is your advice to introverted people on making friends? You are very, very good at making friends. What is your advice? Say if one of your kids ends up being introverted, what would be your
Mhm.
advice to them be?
Yeah, and I think one of them probably is right. So I think
Okay.
looking at their personalities, I could see that. Um,
Interesting.
when it comes to introvert versus extrovert, I mean, there's a spectrum, I believe. Some of this thinking comes from, there's a great book by Susan Cain called Quiet, which is about introverts. And don't don't quote me on any of this stuff, just what I
No, no,
think.
no, no.
But um, I think there's a spectrum, and just because you're favor being an introvert, it doesn't necessarily mean you're not a social person.
Right.
So I think kind of fighting that limiting belief, is the first thing, is recognize that just because you're an introvert, it doesn't mean you're not social.
Right.
Some of my friends that are introverted people are super social
Yeah.
when they're in more of a smaller environment, when they're in, and some of my favorite kind of really deep thinking, thoughtful conversations are with people that you would identify as introverts,
Yeah.
because when you are friends with somebody that's introverted and they're comfortable with you and you're comfortable with each other, my goodness, it's wonderful. and that's what tends to, it just in my experiences, seems to fill their bucket up. So it's not necessarily that they have to be in a big environment with a lot of people, and
Right.
because I would consider myself, to be slightly introverted. I would,
Which
on a
is,
scale of extrovert to introvert, I don't identify as like way over, even though you described kind of being gregarious or, enthusiastic in social
yeah,
situations, I still identify somewhere in the middle,
it's so interesting.
because, yeah. So I think it's just recognizing there's a spectrum, and that just because you identify as introverted, it doesn't mean you're not a social person or that you don't like having connection with people. So I think that would be where I would start is, know what your interests are and find people that share similar values, because you're going to build those connections, and then seek those one-to-ones or those two-to-ones or those small group type of environments where you can build, meaningful connections with people, not necessarily because the bigger, kind of big party, a lot of people,
Right.
a lot going on, that might feel really draining,
Yes.
to somebody who identifies in that way.
Yes.
And you just got to be, it's
okay.
about, yeah, and that's okay. I think
okay.
it's about self-awareness.
Right.
It's about understanding, okay, I feel like this in this environment, but I feel like this, where do you feel energized, right? Trying to pay attention to that, and then, follow those kind of curiosities. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that this is something we're going to discuss later, but I think that you're very good at giving advice that is coming from a place of love. And obviously this is something that's going to be more and more important as your kids get older. But you're not the type to give unsolicited in your face advice. You're very good at giving advice that comes across in a very balanced, measured, smooth way. And it's one of your greatest strengths. And that's going to be, it's huge as a leader, right? But then with your kids, I would imagine that already shows up, right? Where you're already having to give, say, Keaton advice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very specific to the person, right? And there's something that someone we interviewed way back in the day said to us, which I was thinking about recently, which is, what worked for me may not work for you.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing they said when we sat down with them for breakfast.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me for, boy, what was 15, 16, 17 years ago, when we had that conversation. And what I've taken from that is you've got to think about the person. It's not about me or what's worked for me. It's about what's in it for them, right? Like who am I talking to? Who's asking? Who am I talking to? And what might be meaningful for them? Not trying to make it up, but trying to craft something in a way that's going to be understanding, to them, and go from there. So
not every dad or leader has that approach.
Yeah, no, they don't. Yeah,
no, but that's a learned skill. That can be a learned skill.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you and I have seen a good mix of across the board.
That actually does transition into the specific question. Mm-hmm. What is it like to be a dad? It's a very open-ended question, but I would imagine it is, your heartstrings are being tugged on all day, right? What is it like?
Yeah. So when I was thinking about this question, I didn't want to romanticize it, right? Because I think it gets, I think parenthood, fatherhood, motherhood, I think it gets romanticized a lot. Like, oh my gosh, it's the most wonderful thing that ever happened to me. And there's a lot of it that is, right? There's a lot of it that's super fulfilling and wonderful, but it's also a lot of work. I mean, I think when I became a father, one of the most challenging parts was just that you're now 24/7 responsible for another human being. If you're really invested in it, you want to do a good job, which is the type of person that I am, then it's a big job, so it's just going in with open eyes, it's going in with open eyes and a clear head in that regard. And again, that's balanced out with the goofy moments and the kids doing silly things and the connections. And I really do think I've learned a lot more about love, from having children.
Yeah.
I think I've learned how to love better. I think I've learned how to be a better partner and better spouse through the whole experience as well. But we don't have to romanticize it, like it's a lot of work. So I just think that it's important for people to have a, clear mind in terms of, look, there's a balance. There's a balance of a lot of joy and fulfillment. And then there's also a lot of work, because you got people that rely on you, and it's not like there are other adults that rely on you, like in a leadership or a management situation. It's kids that don't even know how to feed themselves in the beginning, like you're required to clean up after them, clean their diaper, clean up after them after they go to the bathroom, and feed them, and so that they can survive, like, so it's a lot of work.
I heard recently that the happiest 30 seconds of a dad's day is when you have all your kids loaded into your car and you close the car door and walk around the car and before you open the door to get back in. Is this true? Is this once all three are loaded into the car, close the door? Is that the most wonderful time of the day?
There's a moment of relief there.
Is that
especially if you've got soundproof doors, so you can't hear them.
This is what
the other moment is after all of them are asleep. Those first few minutes after everybody's put them in.
Okay, so that's the other. Those are the two like happiest.
Because even in the morning, if nobody's up yet, you're always, when are they going to get up? Because I'm the early bird in the house. So.
Do you think that Shaolin monks or dads are better at meditating? Who do you think is better?
Probably the monks, because they practice more.
Okay. All right. So,
but I do think in terms of paradigm, you try to find joy in some of those quiet moments, right? Whether it's kids are asleep or even just quiet activities. When the bigger kids are doing their thing and the baby's taking a nap. It's like anything, right? Whenever you can be in the moment, whatever that moment is, whether it's pure chaos or not, that's a beautiful thing.
and I know I joke, but I know it is actually an incredible experience for you. I've spent a bunch of time with your family, and I just see you and Kelsey so happy around. It just seems like such a neat experience. All those amazing moments where you're just hanging out and they're just playing and they're coming up to you or going outside, going to the playground. It just seems so amazing. I idolize it to a certain degree.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And we love having you around. I mean, you're Uncle Benny boy.
Appreciate it.
I think something that I've learned to appreciate more was that you think about quality time or quantity of time. It's really just about time. Like the garbage time with the kids is sometimes the most fun, when you're just hanging out on the floor and we're doing our thing. Right. It's like, you don't have to have this, I'm going to spend this quality time with this one. It's like, it's that in between time that they remember, it's just hanging out, or playing soccer in the basement with E, or, like that's what he remembers, that's what he thinks about. When am I going to play? And they adapt. Like if you have a moment of pure frustration with them, which certainly happens, like they forget about that the moment you started playing soccer with them. Like they just roll with it,
It's amazing. I love it.
So I think it's that, like, some of the best moments, and maybe you can relate to this as well, with friends that I've had over the years are just those, like, you're just bullshitting. You're just hanging out, like, it's not that you're doing some specific thing. Oh, we went to this event, or we went here, we did this. No, man, it's hanging out on the couch and, chilling and just chatting with each other, or going for a walk, or, It doesn't have to be some big adventure.
No,
It can just be that garbage time, which is sometimes the most meaningful,
I like that.
you know?
That's nice. That's
So,
it's neat to hear that, and it's kind of inspiring to hear that.
yeah.
Because yeah, you're right. That it makes sense that that's what I remember with my parents, just hanging out,
Yeah. Yeah.
hanging out in a tent in the backyard or whatever,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You
And
know,
they'll remember some of the big
oh
experiences
yeah,
too,
oh,
right?
yeah.
But
Totally.
it's I think what people really take away, and this is a leadership principle too, is how you make them feel.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Um, Let me ask you this: what was the first thing you remember enjoying to write as a kid? I did not enjoy writing until mid college
Yeah.
when I started our newsletter. But I just didn't find joy in it. I wasn't that good
Yeah.
at that point. What was the first thing that you remember enjoying to write?
So my answer to this one was I did a report on blue whales when I was in second or
Really?
third grade. Yeah.
Cool.
And I still remember doing that report just because I thought blue whales were really freaking cool. They grow to be like 100 feet long. And I've always loved kind of sea life. I think it's one of the reasons
Yeah.
that I've enjoyed, even though it was super out of my comfort zone, being out in the water, because I've never been a very good swimmer on top of the water.
Right.
But,
Okay.
going diving with Kels, those are some of our,
Yeah.
favorite memories, are getting our dive certifications and going diving. I think I love sea life, but I remember doing that report on blue whales and just being super jazzed up about them. And that was it was either second or third grade,
I love that.
I think. So yeah, that's one that I remember. And then the actual craft of writing,
Yeah.
I think I got more invested in it junior and senior year of high school. I had a wonderful teacher, Mrs. Collins,
Okay.
that taught me a ton and really held me to a high standard.
Yeah.
So that was challenging in
Cool.
that regard. And I think the challenge of it pushed me. And then I love that you talked about that transition from you never really liked it until you started to do it as
By
kind
choice.
of, yeah, by choice in your own style, right? Because I think a misnomer about writing or good writing is that academic writing is very different than everyday life,
Right.
writing,
Right.
whether that's business writing or just trying to communicate, your
Right.
feelings, thoughts, or ideas.
Right.
Um, the when you give yourself the freedom to express yourself in a more personal way and kind of put your own style on things,
Right.
then it can make it a lot more fun,
Mhm.
So that's probably what was happening. If I had to guess, that's probably what was happening for you
Yeah.
when you started to write for fun and by choice, because you were putting your own stamp on it and you were developing your own style of how to say something, in your own voice. And that's really empowering. So that's something I've experienced over the years.
Well, and obviously, and you've been writing more now. I mean, you haven't taken,
Yeah.
you never took a break. You've been writing all through your 20s and 30s, professional communication. At
Yeah.
times you do it for pleasure.
Yeah.
A lot of professional communication every week.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you've gotten back into it recently over the last few months on a pretty big scale.
Yeah, on a very regular basis. So about 7 or 8 months ago, I challenged myself to kind of, kick myself in the butt and get started again. I want to find my voice in that regard,
Huge.
and really explored it more quite consistently, over the last 7 or 8 months. So yeah, that's been good.
Cool.
Mhm.
What successes from high school are you proudest of?
Yeah, a couple things. So there are a couple leadership things that stick out to me from that experience. I had the opportunity to be elected student council president,
Mhm.
which was really meaningful to me because it was about the whole student body there in the high school. So that was really cool. And I had some wonderful experiences doing that. One that was really near and dear to me because it was earned,
Yeah.
right? Was getting elected captain of my sports teams. That was huge, for me. Those were some of my first kind of leadership roles, kind of got me hooked on, the leadership drug, of serving people and being there for people. And those were the first moments of trying to craft my own style, as a leader. So those were two ones from that part of my life.
Yeah.
And then there was another one. I worked really hard every year and performed in the musicals in high school. And those were things that I put a ton of work into.
Yeah.
And I had really good performances. And then, so it was in a condensed period of time. It was January to March, kind of late March every year.
Yeah.
And I acted in the high school musical all 4 years. And those were really cool experiences,
So cool.
Trying to understand the character. And like, I've always had this fascination with acting, so, and because I think life and even socializing, right? I would say that was where I started building some of those social skills. Is when you're acting, you're building that muscle, of kind of performing, because sometimes socializing feels like a performance a bit, if you're going into a place and you're trying to connect with people, there's some of that involved, so those were, I'm really proud of those experiences, just because I worked really, really hard at them. It's kind of crazy when you think back on high school, like how you're getting there and you're doing your classes, and then you and I did sports, right? So you've got sports after school, and then that chunk of time, January to March every year, I was doing the musical practice after cross country and track practice. It was after indoor track and then outdoor track, right? Like it was.
When were you getting home?
Yeah, like 8:00 at night. Because you have school, and then you practice from like 3 to 5:30, and then we'd have play practice from like 6 to 8 or 5:30 to 7:30. So like sometimes my mom would bring dinner out, to meet at the school, and so I'd have dinner, or I'd pack something extra, so I had something in between practice. But yeah, it was a lot of work, and I've always enjoyed kind of human nature, right? Like trying to understand how people tick, right? So what was fun for me about acting was really trying to understand the character that I was representing. And like I knew when I was getting good at it, when my mom said she noticed a difference, like at the dinner table, like whether it was like the intonation of my voice. Yeah, like it was the intonation of my voice, or because I was practicing these characters so much. In Footloose, I was one particular character, and I was in Oliver Twist, where I was a different character, and those are two very different characters, right? So it's like she noticed like either there was a little bit of an accent or whatever, it was just kind of like that was fun. But I put a lot of work into that, and I think the things you put a lot of work into, you tend to feel most proud of.
Yeah.
Right?
What a life experience. Do you think you would ever try acting again when you have more time in the future?
Yeah, well, I think
community theater.
I think I just think you got to stay open-minded to things.
Yeah.
I might.
Yeah.
I don't want to say no, because I think it's cool. I think it's cool. So
that's neat.
Yeah.
If you were forced to intern anywhere for 2 weeks, where would it be?
Well, so some of these different questions are having a similar line of answers, right? So maybe this is something I need to explore more. I would want to be on set of the Star Wars, specifically Star Wars, just because I really admire the people that are producing Star Wars, movies or TV shows like The Mandalorian. Like, how awesome would it be to be on set for 2 weeks, just being whatever they need, just being
I would
run, being an
I would
assistant.
definitely be a janitor for a week there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, just seeing the creative process and the like. Oh my gosh, that would be so much fun, and Star Wars is something that fascinates me. So, but the people that are actually doing those productions, I admire them, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, and like some of the guys that are producing The Mandalorian and some of these shows I just find really interesting people. So yeah, I'd love to be on set of some movie. If I could pick in particular, it'd be like a Star Wars movie or TV set. Mm-hmm.
Well, one of your nicknames given to you by someone who you lead is Yoda. So that is a person that you had for 9-ish years.
Yeah.
years. Calls you Yoda.
Yeah. Yeah, they keep leaving Yoda, yeah, paraphernalia in the office. So I've got a little collection of my Yoda stuff in the office.
Um,
Yeah.
so if you were forced to spend 1 month alone somewhere, where would it be?
Yes. So I had two different ways this answer could go.
Yeah.
The one was kind of the woods and the mountains, right? So I was thinking about it thematically: woods and mountains, or warmth and
Yeah.
water, right?
Yeah. Good.
I ended up picking warmth and water, just probably because I'm coming out of winter where I live. So that seemed the most enticing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But and I had a really wonderful experience on the other side of the world in Thailand.
Yeah.
My wife and I traveled there together for 3 weeks, and then I had a month of visa there. So I actually spent a week alone
Yeah.
on a beach in Krabi in
Cool.
Thailand. And that was a really cool experience. Just kind of great food, friendly people, cheap to live.
Yeah.
And I just kind of wandered the beach. And I'm sure I could find some probably woods and mountains, there in Thailand as well to hike around if I wanted to get the best of both worlds. But yeah, I would say warmth and somewhere warm in the water, near the water. So
It's a good
that's
choice.
my answer.
That'd be a nice. It would be very strange to take a month for you to be alone after spending
Yeah, I think there'd be a
every evening
detox week there. Yeah.
4 people and a cat around every single evening of
Yeah.
your life. What? All right. So, what do you think? What are your secrets to success as a husband?
And I'm going to ask you a question after this one, but
Good.
from the, and I can't claim this. I heard it somewhere recently, although I don't remember where, but it's about paying attention, right? I mean, with any relationship you have, it's about paying attention so that you can love that person in the way they want to or need to be loved,
Yeah.
right? It's meeting them where they are. So in terms of being a good partner, it's paying attention to your partner,
Yeah.
and it's working with them and showing up in them in the way that they need you to show up, so that doesn't mean you can't be true to yourself or have your own thing, but it's that act of showing love to them in the way that they need it is really what starts the process, right? And then it's continuing to invest in that process over time, because like money or like other things in life, it compounds, and when you have two people that are working at it,
Yeah.
and you're continuing to invest in the process of, because people change over time too, right? So like, unless you're actively involved in the process, you're going to grow apart, but if you're working at it together, then as you grow and change, which naturally happens as we get older and different things become more important to us, if you're continuing to invest in that relationship, you never grow apart, because you're actually only growing closer, because you're helping each other grow. You're helping each other be the best versions of yourself. But that's about paying attention and investing in the relationship. So I think that helps, but it's a never ending process, right? Like the journey doesn't end, because people change over time. Like you've got to keep working at it. So you're never there. You've never arrived. But from the daily actions, I think that's what helps when you show up in that way. And when I started making more meaningful connections with, when I was dating with, with other women, or ultimately with my wife, it was because I was focused on trying to become the person that would be a good partner. So it's that internal work of, okay, how do I become the type of person that's a good partner to somebody else? And I think, because it starts with, the best relationship is you have one person, you have another person, and they're whole people first, right? And working together, otherwise you get some, strange dynamics there, right? But it's about focusing on doing the work on yourself to try to be a good partner, and then paying attention, to that other person and showing up in the way that they need you to,
Yeah.
and people give you clues, right? Success leaves clues is something Tony Robbins says. People give you clues about how they need you to show up, but you got to pay attention to those clues. And that goes for friendships and, the relationship with your children or whoever, pay attention and show up the way people need you to show up. And that's how you can give the most love, So, and create a safe space for that feedback, because feedback helps people grow. But if you don't feel safe to give feedback, then that's a problem, because how are you going to be able to be your best for that person if they don't feel comfortable giving you feedback, or like you're going to throw it back in their face, so there's having that kind of, kind candor is a term for it that comes from a Gary Vaynerchuk book.
Cool.
But it's being able to be truthful with somebody, but in a way that you create a safe space to do that, where they feel comfortable, giving you criticism or feedback, where they feel like you'll, receive it, and then being able to give it to them as well, So I don't know, kind of a rambling answer, but that's the core of it's in there somewhere. How I would think about that. Or how would you think about that?
One thing I realized in observing your relationship is at one point I came to the conclusion that you two are warriors for each other. The two of you and Kelsey. I can't even remember the circumstance, but at one point, something Kelsey said, she said, yeah, I have Joe's back. And I was like, and I've seen the same thing from you. And you both seem to have each other's back regardless of whatever. And that's kind of exciting. And you admire each other because you're both successful people in your own right. So there's mutual admiration in that sense, I would say.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about relationships as well is you find that a lot of times what attracts you to a partner is maybe something that complements, a part of you, right? Where it's like you admire that in somebody because maybe it's something that, you want to work on, right? Or, so I think you find those complements to each other. You have similar values, but then you find ways that you complement each other and you can kind of make each other better. Right. So, but it's all a work in progress, like anything.
Yeah.
Good question. So how my question for you as it kind of relates to this in relationships is something I've admired about you over the last really as you've gotten older. You've had to make some courageous decisions, in terms of prior relationships that you ended up having to get out of. Yes. And now dating in your 30s, right? So which is a whole new kind of a whole new arena from when we were in our 20s and dating, So my question to you is kind of what has been most meaningful to you of trying to make connections with people now in your 30s, a little bit more grown up, a little bit more established in life, and kind of know what you like or don't like, and what's been helpful to you in terms of in your journey, kind of taking the daily courage of dating in your 30s.
Oh, thank you for that question. As a single man for the last couple of years, I did get divorced, which was a very, very challenging process. Was not single through my 20s, and so it was a settled down man. The last few years as a single man has been an incredible life-changing experience. My capacity for happiness and adventure has gone way up. I would have never jumped on an electric skateboard 7 years ago. And now it's Sunday. Now I'll probably spend a half an hour, a couple hours doing that later today through a park.
Yeah.
Very excited about it. So from I would say the one big conclusion I've come to being a single guy is there are a lot of amazing women out there. That's just the some people I think have a dating mentality that it is so challenging. And everybody has their challenges. The process of being single is an emotional roller coaster at times. But I've come to the conclusion that the world is full of amazing women There are certainly amazing guys out there too. I have tons of awesome guy friends. And the one thing I look forward to down the road is settling down, finding my mate, having a family. It does excite me. I enjoy the process and the flexibility I have in my life now, but I look forward to being in your situation, be it 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road.
Yeah, whenever it shows up.
Having some kids run around, having that community, that sense of community. So I would say I'm glad I took this path, because it certainly has helped me appreciate all aspects of being in a relationship, being single. But I was never a single guy, so I had relationships in high school, college, after college. I would say it's a neat process. I try to be pretty
this is probably the longest time you've explored being single, right? Because you kind of jumped. I remember just
14
from when we were in college, right? I mean, you're in a relationship, and then there would be a period of time, and then you'd be in it, so it's probably helped you kind of get to know yourself more too. Right?
Yeah, I had maybe 8 months or 9 months of being a single guy, up until 31. And now I've been single for a couple of years.
That's good. That's a wild statistic.
From 14 until 31. And but it's great. And cool. I feel very fortunate to be in this place in life where I have the flexibility to be geographically where I choose. I can hang out with the friends that I want to hang out with. I have the support and love of family and friends. If I moved to Antarctica for a year, friends and family would say, "All right, yeah, go for it.
Go for it." Yeah.
Which is really nice. I do not take that for granted. And who knows what the journey brings. I may be back in Rochester raising kids, living next to you in 5 years, or living in,
we may not be here. Yeah, we may be somewhere else. Who knows?
Or living in Johannesburg, South Africa, surfing. Who knows?
Yeah.
Exciting.
That's cool, man.
Thanks for asking.
Thanks for entertaining that.
Yeah. Question. This is exciting. I have some more questions for you.
Sure.
If you don't mind. So, what is one counterintuitive skill that you use as a leader? I think that as we become wiser, we inevitably as we're leading people, we pick up the little tricks, and we become. I find myself, compared to when I was 15. Leadership roles in Boy Scouts, I found I've come a long way. It's a long journey. That would be a more than 20-year journey. So what do you think is one counterintuitive skill that you use every day as a leader, leading people professionally and your family?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot recently, because I was working on kind of a deep dive of a book by Gary Vaynerchuk. He wrote a book called 12 and a Half. And he talks about 13 different soft skills that and then combinations of those and how he's applied them in his life. So I've thought about a lot of different skills. And the one that stuck out to me the most when I thought about this question was humility. I think it's a superpower. I really think humility is a superpower because it's disarming to people.
Huge.
Right? When you're coming from a selfless place and you're trying to take your ego out of the situation, whether that's actions that you have to take, that could be something, grimy, or getting your hands in the dirt, and getting into something, to lead by example, or it's decisions you have to make where you kind of got to take your ego out of it. Like, well, this was how I thought I would do it, but another person thought it was this way.
Yeah.
Trying to pull yourself back and have that humility to say, okay, I just want the best answer, not necessarily my best answer, right? So having humility, I think, is huge. I think it facilitates a stronger emotional connection, with team members. And it just helps me take life not so seriously, you know, like the giving yourself the freedom to acknowledge that you don't know it all, you know, and that you don't have to know it all, and that, you know, you're kind of all in it together. So it's that combination of things, from applying it to your actions to your engagement with people. I've just found it to be a superpower. So humility would be my answer.
Love that. Because I think it's probably very easy for people in those leadership situations to let it go to their head a little bit,
Yeah.
right? And to not be open-minded. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, you know, one of the kind of mantras I have is people buy into what they help create. So I think part of allowing people to, or part of facilitating that, is having the humility to admit you don't know the answers, right? And that you need to involve people in the process, because you want to get to the best solution. And that the best solution usually involves other people's ideas, you know, and some combination of them, trying to get the best out of everybody. So yeah, that's how I think about that one. What would your answer to that be? You know, posing that question. I know I'm putting you on the spot on this one.
It's funny. I didn't think about the answer, but I'm just going to steal yours, because I think we need to be, I think through certain situational anecdotes, and the more I pay attention to someone's opinion of people I work with, or, you know, who report to me, the more I pay attention to their opinion, it really does help me understand the whole situation. So I think in my early 20s, I would have defaulted to more so, okay, I have this opinion going in this us really paying attention.
I certainly had that as well. Yeah.
And it's helped I think it's helped develop my philosophy of business. Being a business leader is being a philosopher. You know, it's I picture you're really being a very active philosopher. I think that's one of the aspects of being a business owner, business leader, business owner. So yeah, I would agree with what you said. I would agree with what you said. Cool. Can I ask you this? I have 2 specific questions for you that I did not send you prior. Unless you have other comments on leadership.
Bring it out.
Okay.
Nope, let's get your question.
What is your philosophy of money? You are very thoughtful around personal finance and investing. I want to hear.
So I spent a fair amount of time broke. So that helps you really rethink your own personal finances and trying to get your stuff together. I'm stealing this from probably Your Money or Your Life, which was a book by Vicki Robin, and or possibly The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, which is the most important thing that your money can buy is freedom, right? So I think when it comes to money, you've got to recognize that you've got to do the work to earn it and bring it into your life, right? You've got to have the willingness to be able to communicate about it, because that's going to affect your relationships.
Right.
You've got to have the willingness to invest it so that you can ensure a better future for yourself. And it's a combination of those things, right? It's the work to bring it in, because all it is a tool. You've got to earn it. You know, you've got to add the value into the world to be able to bring it into your life. And then you get an opportunity to be a steward, you know, of that. And I think humility plays into that as well, right? Which is not having to need all the things, you know, that money can purchase, you know, having your priorities straight in terms of what's most important to you first, which comes back to that quote about, I think the most important thing money can buy is your freedom. You know, so it's because that gives you personal power to be able to make choices, you know, make better choices for yourself when you have, you know, a little more control over it. So that would be, I'd kind of wrap all of that up as part of my philosophy.
Yeah. What would be your advice to a 22-year-old just starting into their career around what to do with their money and how to think of it?
Yeah, I think stack it up, man. You know, I think it gives you personal power. I think when you start to build the reserves up, when you
Yeah.
start, when you live on far less than what you make,
Right.
and you build that habit, and because you don't need to expand your lifestyle with your income, right? So that would be my first thing is, as you make more money, it doesn't mean you have to spend that money. I mean, build it up and give yourself personal power to make choice, because you may come down the road and you get an opportunity to make a choice that maybe pays you a little bit less, but you'll be happier, and
Right.
or maybe but it could lead to more money in the future.
Sure.
You want to be able to allow yourself those opportunities, because life goes in seasons. I think what's interesting, when I'm in my 20s, I'm living in the basement of a buddy's apartment, for a couple $100 a month. And I was humble enough to do that because I was broke.
Good.
But now I'm in a different season of my life where I have, a family, and I have a mortgage, and I have three kids and a spouse, and I want to do my fair share, for our family situation.
Yeah.
So you've got to think ahead enough to knowing that you're not always going to be in the season of your life where you can just grind it out and live out of somebody's basement. Your situation may change over time. So I think it's being thoughtful enough in the future to save some money for that future self. You can't put enough away in that regard, because once you start putting it away, you give yourself power to make better choices, and things that are maybe more congruent with your values. And that makes my life more fulfilling and more meaningful. So that's what I would think. If I could speak to 22-year-old Joe, that's what I would say to him.
Well, and that's a very hard thing, I would imagine, living in a track of a neighborhood. Your neighborhood is all new-ish houses.
Yeah, you gotta
5 years.
You got to fight the Joneses mentality for sure.
It's got to be tough, because neighbor, whatever, 5 houses away,
gets a pool or does this project, or you got to run your own race. I think you got to run your own race. You got to be true to yourself, and you got to identify what's really important to you, because there's a great podcast out there called the Afford Anything podcast, and the tagline of that is, you can afford anything, but not everything, so you've got to prioritize what is it that's most meaningful to you, because what so-and-so down the road cares about could be very different than what you care about, or you and your spouse and your family care about, so you've got to do the work on the inside to, identify that, right? Run your own race.
Love that.
Put your blinders on as best you can, and be comfortable with that, and that takes a lot of building up your own self-worth, and self-belief, which is, hey, this is what matters to me. I don't give a shit about these, like, we're doing this is what we're focused on, and we're cool with that. We don't need to play into it's because we're ingrained to be consumers, right? The amount of advertisements we see on a daily basis, and really it's a daily fight to try to be true to what really matters to you, and not blow all your dough on stuff that you're probably not going to care about in a couple of weeks, But you got to learn some of those things yourself. You got to go through a little bit of trial and tribulation and learn some of that. But you got to think about it too. So
yes, be thoughtful about it.
Yeah.
So you have an incredible ability that's very unique to me to remember names. I've met a lot of people in this room. I've never met anyone like you, who remembers names as well. There are people who you and I met in college, maybe once, and you'll see them now out and about and remember their name.
I know.
I don't know. Maybe there's like something in your brain, like some synapse that is like turned on and just cranking.
Yeah, it could be. Who knows?
But it's a skill.
I've creeped some people out that way. My wife has coached me on trying to present it maybe a little more. I think I might know you. Meanwhile, I know exactly where I met them, or like I reffed them in kickball like 6 years ago or whatever. Like I know exactly. Oh yeah, but I can't like lead with that, right? I've got to kind of ease into it and say, have we met each other? I think it was maybe,
Amazing.
So I'm a visual person, so I tend to remember people's faces.
Yeah.
And then I've always just put a lot of value in understanding, knowing someone's name. I think people are unique and they have value to give, and they're an important part of the world. So I think there's a part of it where I just care that each person has their own story, and that they're here and that they're writing their own story, so I think people deserve to be, called on by their name, so that's in terms of how I try to remember people's names is I picture their face and then I think of their name in my head, and then I try to use their name in those conversations. And then the beauty of social media nowadays too is you can find a lot of people, by their face. So that helps me associate people as well, over the years is probably seeing that name associated with that face, whether it's, on the internet or on social media, coming up at random or whatever, people we friended years ago that happen to still be, connected to in some form or fashion. So I think it's a combination of those things. But for me, I'm a visual person, and I just put importance in calling people by their names. So those two things help from a mindset standpoint. And then the actual practice of trying to use their name in conversations, I think helps too. It's kind of like learning a new vocabulary word. If you use it in conversation, you're going to help yourself, remember it. So those are practically, and then kind of philosophy of why maybe why I'm good at it. I don't know. My mother had a really good memory, so maybe I got some good genes in that regard too.
Okay, I didn't know that that's where some of that may have come from.
Maybe. I don't
Your
know.
dad's a scientist also. I mean,
My dad's a scientist, yeah.
Pretty smart people.
Yeah. I don't know. So that'd be my rambling answer to that.
It's a good answer. Are there any bucket list activities that you think that you and Kels will participate in once the kids are adults? So
we're trying not to separate it from. We want to be on the journey with them, right? Like, what are things that we can do with them? And we got young kids, right? We got 6.5, 4.5, and now a 1-year-old. We built our confidence a lot up this winter because we went on a big long road trip and we drove for days and days and days with them, which seemed crazy and chaotic. And there certainly were moments of that on the road, but we built our confidence up, and so now we want to experience some of those adventures, with them. And I think it's trying to bring them along on the journey, but things that are important to just my wife and I that my kids haven't got experience yet. Diving. We love diving. Our honeymoon, we traveled to a place specifically where we could go diving. We got our dive certs in Thailand, which is somewhere I talked about a little earlier. So I think those things, I'm sure we'll be doing some diving, maybe with the kids that are up, but it'd be fun to do that with them too. So I think there's a lot of seasons of life to enjoy with the kids here, where it's hard to think about afterwards, because like, why not share those experiences if we can with the kids?
Yeah.
Right. Why not make some memories with them together and kind of give them the jump with having some of these unconventional life experiences? I think something that what's connected you and I over the years are some of those experiences that we've had that were totally out of the box, right? Traveling to Ghana together and being scared shitless at the airport, figuring out, on 10 o'clock at night, trying to find out where are we even getting to where we're going. Like, we didn't even know.
What were we doing?
Yeah, it's crazy,
What? Wait, what?
So like,
I'd say that's
man, what a confidence booster, right?
Oh, that was
just being able to handle adversity,
two 21-year-olds with more confidence than sense, hanging out in sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah, that's fair to say. Yeah.
Oh,
so I think it's gift. That's a gift for kids. I mean, for me, my first experience was traveling to Costa Rica at 17.
Yeah.
Like, just blew my world open of, oh, this isn't it here in Kirkwood, New York. Like, this isn't all that there is out there. Nope. There's a lot more to experience, and people that are billions of people, throughout the world. Yeah. So I think giving them perspective has helped me as I've gotten older. Yeah. I would wager it's probably helped you too, the different experiences that we've had. And I think being able to build perspective for my kids and self-confidence is is a wonderful gift. So I think having some of those adventures with them would be helpful.
That's neat. Yeah, that's well, again, you're very methodical as to how you are raising your kids. One example, Normans are
happy people.
Yep.
Yeah, we have our little mantras.
And so
what do we say to ourselves when we're trying something new or difficult? I can do it. Positive attitude. So
huge.
building that growth mindset. I think if there are a lot of things that my kids aren't going to really care what I say, right? But if I can build in them self-confidence and a growth mindset, that if you want to get better at something, you can do that. You just got to put the work in. Like building those things up in them will hopefully be a superpower for them to be able to navigate all the different adversity that we face, as human beings.
I love it.
So that's important to my wife and I.
I love it. I think
so. We have our little mantras.
I will be doing the same thing, and my playbook when I have kids someday is just going to be copying your mantras.
Well, you can let me know your own too.
One of my mantras I'm going to add is, DeGeorge's you don't skate backwards down a driveway unless there's not a gutter at the end.
They have their helmet and their knee pads. Oh, there you go.
That's how I broke my arm.
They had to have their safety equipment on.
Yeah. And then you don't throw rocks. Another mantra of mine will be, don't throw rocks straight up in the air over a tree, because it might come back and hit you in the head
and whack you down. Don't you have a BB in your hand as well?
I do. I do. All right. So that being said, all right, I want to hear about some of your injuries as a kid. Do you?
Yeah, I've never broken a bone. Knock on my desk here.
Good.
What were some good ones? You get our sports injuries and cross country and track are like getting scraped up by cuts and scrapes and so I haven't had any major ones which totally derailed me. I had an injury in college training which was more nagging, like a tendonitis in one of my feet. So those would be kind of more like usage. Those would have been the big injuries that have hurt me physically. Are those like use ones? So I think what they help you kind of tune into, all right, what's going on, just being a little more in tune with your body and what's happening.
Nice.
But I haven't had any major trauma, like broken arm. Huge. I haven't done any of those, fortunately, in 36 years now of being around the block.
Amazing.
So
do you
there are plenty of bumps and bruises having two older bros.
I'm really surprised you all three of you survived.
Well, yeah.
I'm imagining it's like three vicious, bears wrestling each other. One of them's going to get scraped up. So
I remember I went to visit my oldest brother at a party in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And it was early in the morning, and he challenged me to a wrestling match, at his and he just mopped the floor with me. I was 17 or 18 years old, and he just took me out in front of all his college buddies.
Yeah. Normans don't age either. So you and your brothers do not age. You just don't.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Side.
It may catch up at some point. I have found that I've had more gray hairs based on either more people that are accountable to me or more children in the house. But but hey, I guess that's sexy, right? A little salt and pepper. So I'll take it.
Yes, I would agree. Hey, you've been back on a running streak. So not only have you been on a writing streak, you have been
25 out of 27 days. I've no run. I missed last night. We traveled all day yesterday.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it at 9 o'clock when we got home, but 25 out of 27 days I've run over the last period of time, which has been wonderful. And it's been I feel, look, I mean, I'm just running for a very short period of time,
5 minutes.
but it's building the routine, you know, because you can always take something, and this comes from a book, Atomic Habits, which I read, which kind of prompted me to get out there. You can always take something, starting small, and then you eventually build on that. It's a lot easier to make something bigger that you're already doing, or more comprehensive that you're already doing, than it is to start something new. So you got to put the energy into starting it and just having a practice. So I've got a little routine where at the latest, if when I'm putting Core to bed, once she's asleep, I'll go out, I'll do my run. So that's usually 7 or 7:30 at night. So but I have my stuff set out, and I just, once she's in bed, I'm usually already in my running clothes when I'm trying to put her down.
Cool.
Because I do most of the bedtime duty. Because my wife does pretty much everything else. So, so yeah, I'll get in my running clothes before I put her to bed, so that when she's asleep, I go out and I do it, rain or shine. And that's been good. So then eventually I want to build that up, and then I don't have a race registered, but
Yeah.
I want to do an event probably in the fall that I want to build up to. So I'll start doing.
Oh, sorry, Joe.
Yeah, I'll start doing 2 loops, you know, at some point in time, maybe a few days a week, but I'll try to build on the amount of time that I'm out there. But for now, I've got a good streak going, you know, 25 out of 27 days.
I love that.
Yeah, it feels good.
Congrats. That's huge.
So, and it's been starting small. It's been about starting small, and I've always identified as a runner. Yeah. So I wanted to, this is what do runners do? They run. So I want to just get out and run more. Because it feels, there's something about just like running, moving your body, and just like, you know, maybe it's ingrained in you and I from the years of pounding the pavement, but it just feels good to like fly around.
Yeah, it feels really
not that I'm flying very fast these days, but
no.
I'm at least getting it. Yeah.
I think of one of the guys that I ran with in high school, Teddy Quinn. He at one point said, "We'll always have running," and yeah. I love that, you know, because it is for us a cathartic experience. Yeah. You know, I went running earlier today and felt amazing. I've been running 2 or 3 times a week recently, which for me is very sustainable. Just like 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, yeah. I tried a week streak, and then I felt that my body was a little too sore. Little too sore. But I'm gonna keep on at least twice a week for the time being.
You know, I think as we get older, and you and I have talked about this before,
yeah,
you start to appreciate your body a little bit more as, hey, this is the vehicle that like allows me to, you know, enjoy life. Right? So we got to treat it with a little more respect than maybe we did at different seasons of our life, you know, and it just makes you appreciate being able to do something athletically, or for me, carry my kids around or whatever, you know, and just being a little more functional as I just, as I've gotten into my mid 30s, you know, I just think you care about your body as a vehicle for life here a little bit more. So
yeah, you seem to be a pretty healthy eater, right?
Decent. Yeah, that's mostly because of my wife. She's a wonderful cook, and yeah, for the most part, I eat reasonably well, with a few milkshakes here and there. So yeah, I think my daughter just woke up. So bear with me just a moment. Let me check her.
Yep.
Yeah. She's out there playing. Yeah.
Do you you've mentioned that knowing that this is your 3rd child is your final child because you can't anymore.
Scientific, courtesy of a.
I've heard that. I've heard sometimes people, you know, it still could happen, right? But rare chance. Have you been appreciating the process more, knowing that it is your 3rd time, final time?
You know, I have thought about this quite a bit. With Keats and E, they were so close together. It was, and they're adorable. And he is adorable when he was a baby, but it was hard to appreciate him being so tiny because they were so close together, and Keaton was still toddling around. You know, they were about 20 months apart.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of work in that period of time, where we had that gap in time where my wife and I weren't sure if we were going to try to have another child.
Yeah.
And then once we started trying, it was difficult to do.
Mm.
So it was a longer process than we may have expected. So there's a little bit more of a gap in between E and having Cora. So because the bigger kids are a little bit bigger, and kind of can do their own thing a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think we've enjoyed the tiny baby part, So, and she's also just a happy little thing, So, I think we've done a pretty good job of just trying to soak it up, Yes, there's the reality of it being our last health wise. It wouldn't be great, for my wife to have another pregnancy.
Right.
And, so we made that move, and I made the choice to go in and get the procedure done. But I think it does. I think when you know that that's the case, it's kept me in the moment a little bit more, with some of the small baby things, because once she's out of them, So, but it also makes it hard, those transitions of, oh, she's grown out of her 6 to 9 month clothes, or now she's grown out of, so it makes that transition, because we don't have we've kept all those clothes. So like some of the clothes she's wearing, Elon wore or Keaton wore, and they've been passed out, so it's like we see little outfits that she's wearing, and we could picture Elon in that same outfit, or Kelso had a picture of. Yeah, so it's like, that part's been really fun, because you kind of relive some of those moments of the bigger kids too. But then it makes it, you get a fair amount of bittersweet, like, oh, well, she's moving around, man. She's flying around the house now. She's just crawling, but
Flying.
Yeah. She's yeah. Woo! Yeah. Quite like that. But yeah, I would say in general, yes. But there's there's a lot of nuance to that.
Yeah, I'm do the two older kids, Keaton and Elon, do they understand? I mean, are they amazing older siblings? Like, are they cautious around Cora?
In general, they do a really good job. In general, they do a really good job.
Yeah.
I think my wife has coached them up well on it. I've tried to coach them occasionally on it, but I think they do a really good job of understanding some of her needs and non-needs. But they're also like, they just want to do their own thing sometimes, So like, kids are inherently, selfish, and like that's what they're going to do, their thing, because they have their own little interests and whatever. And sure. It's my wife and my job to pay attention to Cora, not their job. But they're a great big sister and big bro. I mean, they're really loving and caring. They're good. They're really compassionate with her when they want to be, So yeah, in general, they do a really good job.
Mm-hmm. I love that. What are you reading right now?
Yeah, good question. I'm in between books. So I just finished Atomic Habits, and I was just about to start probably 2 books that were really impactful to me last year were written by an artist and writer named Austin Kleon. He wrote a book, Show Your Work and Keep Going, which I read last year, which kind of helped, between that and a Ryan Holiday book, Courage is Calling, kicked me in the butt to start writing and sharing writing again, to kind of, 1, have a creative process, and 2, actually share some of that to try to find my voice in that regard. So those would be, so there's a 3rd book by Austin Kleon that I have not read before. It was his first book, actually, is the one that I haven't read. It's called Steal Like an Artist. So I just picked that one up, and I think that's what I'm going to read next. So
nice.
Yeah. What about you? What are you reading right now?
I'm reading Alaska by James Michener.
Oh, Michener.
You know what? He's still my fave fiction writer. And Alaska, I had heard through the grapevine that this was a couple of people's favorite Michener book. The first half didn't hit as well for me as some other Michener books, but now it's awesome. This is a great book, and it makes me want to visit Alaska.
Yeah, cool.
Very cool.
So that's something that's always connected us to, right? Books.
Yeah.
I think whether it's part of that personal growth process that both you and I have always been committed to, but that's something I've enjoyed about our relationship over the years and our friendship is that connection over finding things that are interesting and impactful or just fun and entertaining. I think we've always, one of my favorite things is sharing books with each other.
You gave me my first business book.
Yeah.
And that's
kind of a wild history. Yeah.
That's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You gave it to me. And I thought I was a freshman in college. I remember you were a sophomore. I remember reading it in the dorm room I shared with Brett Dolan. And yeah, that was my first business book. That was a really good one to give me as a first business book. And it's so funny. That meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me. And then
you and I have shared a lot over the years, a lot of different books with each other. Our newsletter came from a book by Jeffrey Gitomer, or inspired by anyway, like some different things from that. And then some other stuff we had read. I think it was Keith Ferrazzi, maybe it was the other one, where we kind of combined some ideas together and then started writing that newsletter.
That was a beautiful project. Remember Sundays?
Oh my gosh, they're exhausting. Because when we'd have a race the prior day, we'd usually have some sort of social engagement. Yeah, social event.
Saturday night.
On Saturday. And then Sunday we'd wake up and we'd run for like some ungodly amount of miles, 15, 17, 20 miles,
Yeah.
And then we'd produce a newsletter, usually sometime before midnight.
Amazing.
It's the work, right? Like I talked about before with the musicals and high school, something that's proud of that we put so much work into. Like that's a really proud experience for you and I. Huge. And I don't want to speak for you, and we've talked about it over the years. But we put so much work in. Huge. And I think we got a lot of value out of it because we put a lot of work into it, right? I think life is congruent in that way. Like the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it.
You have to do the work, whatever it is. It gives us. I obviously there's work that we do to achieve financial comfort or success or whatever. Then there is the work that we do purely for the joy of it. There's also the work we do to stay healthy and have a healthy mindset, and the work with our friends. Do you think though? I've come to the conclusion that we need to work. To be whatever that is. It can be volunteering, but we do need to have that production in our lives. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah, I think work helped me when I was broke. I think work helped me appreciate the hi little lady. How are you? I think work helped me appreciate the process of, adding value so that you could earn money, right? And then work also helped me when doing work on yourself, when I felt a little bit broken, whether it was spiritually or emotionally or whatever, like it's all work, I don't know, it matters. Hi there, little unicorn.
Well, I tell you what, we're going to come to a conclusion on this interview, Mr. Joe.
Sounds good, man.
That's up for our time. I really enjoyed this. This is our first video interview.
Yeah. Maybe we'll make a podcast out of these conversations.
Do you have any closing words?
No, I think you covered a lot of good stuff. Do you have anything to close? I've enjoyed this experience. I appreciate it. You have really thoughtful questions, something that, as we talked about earlier, I've always admired about how thoughtful you are. And I like that you can hear my daughter in the background here.
She sounds cute.
She is cute. Hey, what do you got there? Yeah. Oh, good job. It's been a fun experience. So thanks for making it fun.
Well, folks, that is a wrap. I'm going to pause, but I'm going to continue to talk to you for a minute.
All right. Sounds good.